Well, we are a little late, so we're going to jump right into the next one. The next panel will be on global acceleration. And I tried, and I wanted to introduce every single one of our panelists today, but their portfolios are so big, they've done so many things, I can't do it. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, just name-wise. Garcia, welcome. Daniel Tomov, Jarmila Plachá, and just want to introduce our lovely moderator today, Jordan Schlipf, who is just a little bit about Jordan himself. He actually is a tech and consumer product entrepreneur. He is a Springboard Mobile alum and has founded 4 companies. But most interesting, maybe today for the panel, is that he has been through an accelerator himself. He knows that, has that experience. Then went and worked in 20 accelerators across Europe, gained tons and tons of user experience, and then figured, I know how to do this now, let me design my own accelerator. So that's what he does for a living now. So I'm going to let him handle from now. Thank you.
Thank you, Christo. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Woo! Quick question. How many here are thinking that they may want to go on an accelerator program? Hands up. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Great. Well, I just want to welcome and say good morning to our guests, our panelists. And let's begin with them. So, Jarmila, please introduce yourself and your accelerator.
So, good morning, everyone. I hope you had a great party last night. And I would like to introduce myself and what I'm currently doing. So, my name is Jarmila Plachá, and I'm lucky to be Wyara CE Director located in Prague. And Wyara is a very special platform because it's part of a much wider project operated, sponsored, and supported by Telefonica. So we are part of a project of a platform called Open Future. So what Wyara actually does, Wyara is currently operating in 12 different countries. We have 14 different accelerators, and in Prague we have one of those. In Europe, we have 7, the same in Latin America. What we are giving to the startups is not only 40,000 euros in cash, but we are giving the 8 months acceleration program and also a lot of support from Telefonica in general. So before going any forward, I've noticed that my colleagues, this is like a sort of a minor battle for the best startups in the whole. So I've noticed that they are wearing good T-shirts today. And I got prepared for that even without knowing that they would be wearing those. So just in case, guys, you want to ever change the job and come to work for Wyara, I brought you T-shirts.
We all love free stuff.
These T-shirts were actually designed by our startups. So one is for you.
Oh.
I love this one. It's not a bug, it's a feature.
The battle just started.
Jarmila, you're here to help the startups. Surely these T-shirts should be for the startups.
And this is what I wanted to say next. I have about 30 more T-shirts, including female ones. So I'll be waiting for you outside when we finish, and I'll be more than happy to share with you what Wyara does. And please believe me, it's not only about 40,000 you get from Wyara, it's more about the value of the acceleration program. So if you are interested to accelerate your business in any of 14 academies of Wyara, come and talk to me later.
Sure. So Jarmila, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of what you offer and for all the programs, but what's your background personally? How did you end up in Wyara doing acceleration? What's your story?
It's really interesting that you're asking me because I was sitting here yesterday at the female panel, and I ended up at Wyara as a stranger because I spent all of my life in a corporate world. I was working my last job was a CMO for one of the biggest global banks. And I decided to completely change my world because I was so, everyone in corporation nowadays talks about 2 words. One of them is innovation and the second one is startup. And I always felt challenged by something which is new. And that's why 10 months ago, I accepted the very good offer from Telefonica to learn something new. So my personal mission in this particular job is to try to help to build bridges between corporation and startup world. Because what Telefonica is trying to do is trying to bring fresh wind into its core business. Because I didn't mention it, but Wyara, in fact, in Quechua language, means fresh wind.
So banker for pretty much all your life, and you joined Wyara recently, 10 months ago. Yep. Congratulations. She escaped the city. Yay! Angela, please introduce yourself and your Accelerator program.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for inviting us. My name is Angel Garcia. I have been in a lot of sides of the table. The first thing was 10 years ago we created a company, we raised 30 million US dollars, and we created 100 million revenue companies in the cell phone industry. In the antenna, and you know, 10 years ago the cell phones used to have an external antenna. They don't have anymore an external antenna, they have an internal antenna. This is thanks to our technology. We created the technology and we licensed the technology to Apple, Motorola, BlackBerry, Samsung, LG, and so on. It was a very successful business with a lot of pain, 2 times about to go bankrupt, but well, at the end it ends pretty well. After that, I created a small venture capital fund in the south of Europe with some of the money that we earned, and together all the successful entrepreneurs in the south of Europe, people that did IPOs, I mean, it's the entrepreneurs' money. This is something that I learned when I was studying at Stanford, that probably early stage is much better money for entrepreneurs rather than from established venture capital. This is probably for Series A or something like that. And right now, an accelerator, that's probably something in the middle, right? This is an accelerator, something to be an entrepreneur and being an investor, and then it's, you have to really understand very well both sides, both entrepreneurs but also the investors, because at the end is the goal. And this is what we are trying to do at Startup Bootcamp. Startup Bootcamp is let's say a well-known European accelerator, right today with Wyara. This year we were awarded as the best accelerator in Europe at the Europas. We are right now running 9 programs in 8 cities. I think it's London, Berlin, Amsterdam, Istanbul, Tel Aviv in Israel. I'm going to open Barcelona about IoT and data. We are planning to open San Francisco next year, Singapore, Cape Town in South Africa.
World domination.
Yeah, well, at the end, we truly believe that to have a big network is really valuable. Today, all the business has to be global from the beginning. To have the opportunity to have contacts and access to people in different places in the world is really interesting. The point could be how do you avoid the conflict of having interest in a specific, being in the program of Barcelona, for instance, and having interest to some contact in London. The way that we do is we have specific verticals in every city, meaning that in London, the guys are only getting startups for fintech. In Copenhagen, they are also doing mobile. In Barcelona, we are going to do IoT and data.
So Internet of Things and data.
Internet of Things data, meaning that there is any interesting contact in London that want to know more about IoT or data, the guy in London is going to forward to me. And the same the other way around. So at the end, every program in any city in the world is getting all the traction, all the interest about the specific field, specific vertical. This is what we are doing. It's a 3-month acceleration program. We provide the pizza money, the 15,000 euros for the 3-month program, plus all the services that coming from the experience that the Startup Bootcamp already has from the 4-5 years working on that.
So last but no means least, Dylan, you probably are maybe the most well known here in Sofia, but please introduce yourself personally and your accelerator.
Okay, my name is Daniel. I'm actually substituting Dylan today. So I'm a founder at 811. We are based in, most of you know us, we are based in Sofia, but we operate in the whole southeast of Europe. So in the last, we operate for 2 years now. We established ourselves as a leading accelerator in the whole region here. We invested in more than 90 startups as of today, which is more than 300 founders all across the region. We have very good results with our startups, and we've built a really great community around ourselves with mentors and founders and investors. And we truly believe that the community is actually the most competitive edge that we have, and we see now with these big numbers how it helps to all the founders to progress with their startups. I mean, how I came up with, how I ended up with 11, it's interesting. I started in 2000 with let's say prototype of 11. It was called the Bull Ventures, where we invested with a couple of friends in a number of technology startups. Some of them are now one of the biggest software companies in Bulgaria. And it was very tough and challenging at these times, but and then I was entrepreneur myself, so I knew how difficult it was to be a founder in our region. So it was always an aspiration to build a platform that could help other founders.
Cool. So, as an entrepreneur myself, and having been through an Accelerator program, one of the first questions, if I'm looking at Accelerator, is which one? Which one is going to be most valuable to me, and why? So how do I pick the right accelerator out of the sea that has seemingly appeared of hundreds in Europe, right? So we all know the story of Cinderella. There is a glass slipper that fits 1 foot, right? How would you describe the ideal startup that you could help the most? So who is the startup that you would be looking for, that you could provide the most value to?
Yesterday we had a chat at the dinner with Stanislav from Launch Hub, because we're constantly discussing these things about how we cooperate, how we compete, and all that. So I think over the years what I learned is that investing in startups or especially at the early stage, it's a very personal business. So it doesn't, at the end of the day, is whether there is a chemistry between the team and you as an investor, and whether you could see yourself living with these people for the next number of years, and how you could help this specific team. It's not so much about, the domain is important, like whether you have an expertise to help these people, of course the network, but at the end of the day, it's the team picking up the investor and the investor picking up the team.
So let me ask a question. So Daniel, let's go into that. If I am building I'm an American company, I'm doing B2B in America. Yeah. I'm selling to American banks, American companies, GE, whatever, and we get on like a house on fire. We're good friends, right?
Yeah.
Would you be the best accelerator for my startup?
Very much depends. I mean, for example, yesterday what we talked with Conor Murphy is that like Ireland and Sofia are very good places to start your business. Why? Because it's a small place, very compact. It's relatively cheap to start your business, to validate your product. It's one call away from all big businesses or banks. So if you have, for us here, it's very easy to organize 4 or 5 banks to become your test clients, so that you could co-create the
local
product.
banks.
There are no local banks. All banks that are present in Bulgaria are actually one of the largest banks in Europe.
Cool.
So in that regard, once you have that, it's much easier then to scale and go to other markets, whether in the US. And yes, there were startups from the US that because of personal relationship, they wanted to become investors. But for us, it's very difficult to do that from the regulations that we have as an investor.
Okay.
If I was an entrepreneur, first I think I have to look for someone with experience enough. I mean, someone that has been in the market for some years, because probably the first year for the accelerators is not the best one. An accelerator as a startup, they keep learning, providing better workshops, having more contacts, having more sponsors on board, more corporate partners around. I think the first thing that I would do is to choose someone with proper experience. Second, if there is an accelerator doing something specific in the vertical of in the space that I'm working, probably I'm going to choose that. Startup Bootcamp, we are doing that. I'm not going to talk about Barcelona, but for instance, fintech in London, they are just focusing in fintech. If I have a fintech startup, I'm gonna go to London. In London, they have corporate sponsors like MasterCard, Barclays Bank, Joyce Bank, that probably will provide an amazing access to the business that you want to that.
So it might be easier with Startup Bootcamp because all your programs are verticals, right? So whether it's fintech, whether it's IoT in Barcelona. So to answer the question, which startups could you help the most? It's probably easier for Startup Bootcamp because it's like, well, look, if you're not a fashion tech or you're not a fintech or you're not an IoT, so let's focus on IoT in Barcelona. If you're not doing IoT, I don't want to talk to you, right?
Right, do you have other programs? But I remember the other day having a conference call with a big corporation that considered into sponsorship the program and talking about IoT. So they were Angel, IoT is so broad.
Yeah.
You know, it's smart cities, smart home. what are you going to focus? What kind of startups are you going to, the last 10 that you are going to choose to join the program? And my answer was, we are expecting to get 400 applications to join the program next year. We are trying to interview 50, 75 of them. We are going to invite the best 20 to our selection day in Barcelona. And my goal as a managing director is to try to identify the 20 best teams. Because at the end, it's a lot about the team.
In what metric? The 20 best that's going to make you money in return, or the 20 best that you could help the most?
The 20 best entrepreneurs. Because at the end, you know, sometimes early stage, of course that everybody has an idea, a plan, or whatever. Our program is very focused. The first month is very focused in shaping, in refining the idea. The teams are going to have the opportunity to meet with a lot of people in order to, this is what you want to do, this is the way that you want to do that, in order to refine the idea. But if you don't have the raw material, if you have the right people, it's going to be very difficult to change or to modify anything. So let's try to focus and get on board the 20 best teams, and then finally the 10 best teams. That's my point.
So Jarmila, who can you help the most?
That's a difficult question. I would like to answer with a broader sort of scope of information. One of the criteria which is relevant for Wyara for the startup to be successfully accepted to any of the 14 academies is the potential fit with Telefonica. And as you said, Internet of Things can be a very wide platform, and you can actually fit with many different projects into this particular topic. The questionable element of fit with Telefonica, and I will explain you in a bit what I actually mean, is also not the only criteria, because we are trying to attract startups who want to build global business, number one. Number two, Telefonica is the main sort of mother of Wyara. And one of the reasons why Wyara exists is that Telefonica is hoping to develop some new business models or improve their processes thanks to Wyara startups. So if a new startup is coming to Wyara, Telefonica fit is one of the key criteria. And I will explain to you what I was trying to say at the very beginning. When you look at the telemedicine as a business, you would say, what sort of fit is there with Telefonica? One of my startups from the current cohort raised recently 80,000 euros. And it's a Polish team coming to Prague, accelerating their business model, and halfway through the acceleration program, they managed to raise this kind of money. Another business which originally I would say what sort of fit with Telefonica is there is, for example, a real estate. So one of my startup is devoting some smart solutions.
Jarmila, I have to ask, why is Telefonica relevant? What is Telefonica doing with startups anyway?
I would say that it's a very good question. Telefonica globally has 300 million customers, and
are you providing your startups with access to your customers?
We are providing startups to access to the core business, to core business managers, and currently 22% of
core business managers, not customers.
Both. First, you need to validate that you have an added value for the end customer, because out of 22% who are Wyara has raised and has helped to 341 startups up till now. And out of these, 22% are in active trial with Telefonica. Some of them are introducing new B2B solutions, new B2C solutions, but first you need to validate if it has the added value.
So if I'm potentially looking to do business with Telefonica, potentially go to Wyara. If I'm IoT or a particular vertical, potentially start up Bootcamp. If I am... So is it, I mean, do you have a strength, Daniel, here in the region? So if I'm building a business that I could launch and grow as a springboard from the Baltics?
It turned out that we are good in a number of verticals, like B2B, enterprise, SaaS models, hardware. I mean, we are doing pretty well there. So we could help a number of different startups. So the network is really strong.
And the network is based here locally?
I mean, the paradox is that actually, because we're coming from a small geographic place, all the entrepreneurs that start businesses, doesn't matter in which field, they usually start from day one with the idea to export. because they have to be international. Otherwise, they don't have a chance. So because of that, the networks of such small places are actually really strong internationally. And it's much easier to get to some C-level people in the Silicon Valley or elsewhere, it doesn't matter where it is. It's much more direct than actually to land in San Francisco and try to work your way up.
Okay, that's
So,
interesting.
and it's working pretty well. You could talk with a number of startups here, and there are a number of examples that actually this is happening. And this is really one of the strengths of the network that we have.
Okay, so if I was going to apply, what do I need to get in? What do you look for? What is the eligibility criteria? So Lama, you mentioned that there needs to be some sort of fit within Telefónica's strategic rationale, whatever that is. But what do you guys look for? Like, what are the things that, do I need a team? Do I need a prototype? Do I need to be earning money, revenue? What do you guys look for?
I mean, in our case, we are relatively venturous in our approach. So we do invest in early stage. So in most of the case, we bet on the teams. And of course, we look at, and currently 80% of the companies that we invest in, they come from the network. So either from the founders that we invested in, or from mentors, or from other investors. So we already have a reference for these teams. The other thing is that we look at...
I could just have an idea. I don't need to have anything else. I just have a team and an idea.
No. Of course, we invest in some relatively advanced teams, like which are already generating revenues. But it's still a spectrum, so it's okay because they see value in the network that we have.
But I have to have a team, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, I can't apply as an individual.
You can, but the
Okay.
chances are slim.
So what about Startup Bootcamp? What do I need? What do you look for?
You need a co-founder if you want to come. You have to commit to come to Barcelona or any place for at least 3 months. We offer office for 6-9 months, but you have to commit at least with the 3 months. You have to have a minimum viable product. It's not enough with the PowerPoint. You need to have something. And you need to have a legal entity created, probably in UK, in the US, or in the country that we are running the program.
Interesting.
Well, at the end, the goal is to raise money and to make the company big. I'm not saying that to have a legal entity in Bulgaria or something like that is not going to help. You can have it, the legal entity in Bulgaria, but you have to have another entity in Spain, in our case, or in UK, or in the US, in Delaware, because it's the good way to avoid then later on problems with the raising and those kind of things. But I think the most important thing is the team. The legal entity is something that we can solve. The product is something that we are going to work on it. But the team is the most important thing.
Cool.
If I can comment, Wyara started its operation in 2011, and at the very beginning we were following the same principle. We were taking on board teams with just an idea on a piece of paper. But Wyara went through a lot of learnings, and currently we are concentrating on more mature teams with MVP as well. We require the startup to be registered in the countries where either Wyara or Telefónica operates, has its operational business. And at the end of the day, I forgot to mention the most important thing. Wyara takes 10% of your equity. So it's a mutually important relationship into which Telefónica and Wyara is ready to invest a lot of energy and money and effort. And this approach to concentrate on more senior startups seems to be bringing first fruits, because up till now, Wyara, with backing of Telefónica, invested 14.3 million euros, but our startups already managed to raise 43.6 million euros. So these measurements are showing that if you concentrate on more senior startups, of course, the quality of the team is one of the major criteria. We do not take a solo funder because it's obviously too risky, but the quality of the team, global scalability, being registered in one of the countries where Wyara or Telefónica has OBs, and at the end of the day, then it's pretty easy to be accepted, because I'm reacting to the question, how easy is it for a Bulgarian team to apply? If you look around, there must be Martin Linkov from Ingenio, Bulgarian startup currently being accelerated in Prague, so you can ask him how easy or difficult it was. We had in the last selection process, we had over 140 applications, and we selected 9 teams who are currently at Wyara.
So if we keep this short and precise, as an entrepreneur, what do I get if I join your programs? If I join 11, what do I get? If I join Startup Bootcamp IoT in Barcelona, what do I get? If I join Wyara in Prague, CE, what do I get?
Okay, in terms of money, we start with 25,000 euro for 8% equity, and we could go up to 200,000 euro. Currently, we provide also a convertible note of 75,000 euro to all the teams after the first month in the program. Also, you have access to a lot of mentors in the network. And we follow the model of Techstars, and we are part of the Global Accelerator network, which gives additional resources for all of the founders.
Okay.
In the case of Startup Bootcamp, money is just 15,000 euros. As I said before, it's a bit of money to manage the 3 months in another city, but in addition to that, we provide the 3 months acceleration program that is plenty of workshops, meeting with a lot of investors, entrepreneurs. It's very mentor-driven program, especially the first month that I said before. We are going to focus in shaping the idea. The second month we are going to focus in build the idea or improve the product that you have. And the third month we are trying to focus in sell, in trying to get the first customers. For us, it's really important to have big corporations around. This is something that all the programs have. We have global partners. As global partner for Startup Bootcamp, we have Google as global partner, we have Amazon, and we have PayPal. But every program, they have their specific sponsor. They have Vodafone is a sponsor in Amsterdam, Cisco is a sponsor in Berlin, Sony in other places. I mean, big brands are together with the specific verticals that are really helping to the startups.
How much equity do I give away for the
15,000?
8%?
8%. And the program always finishes, I think, in all the cases with a final demo day in front of a lot of investors. In our case, in the IoT program, we will have our demo day next year at the stage of the Mobile World Congress, which is something very relevant for us. Mobile World Congress probably is the biggest event in Europe. 80,000 people coming to the city, and having the opportunity for our teams to pitch there is going to be amazing. About the fundraising, I mean, Startup Bootcamp is very transparent. You can go to the website of the Startup Bootcamp. It's a sheet about the statistics, and you can see 74% of the teams that are joining a program are raising money in an average of €500,000 euros. I think that at this stage is quite relevant. It's not my marketing history, it's public, it's in the website, so it's quite remarkable.
So both of you started with the cash first. Do you think cash is the most important thing, Jarmila?
I would say that added value of Wyara is that we offer 14 different academies. I'm not here to promote CEE Academy whatsoever. I would love you to apply for London or Madrid or Venezuela or Mexico. So I would say that the added value of Wyara is the global network of academies as well as Telefonica network. Because what we are really good at, on top of what I already mentioned, the benefits, we can open other markets for you through Telefonica. So if you start and accelerate in London and there is a business potential for you in LATAM, we will fly you over, and through local OB we can help you.
And you'll pay for that?
Of course.
Where does the money for my flight come from?
Listen, it always depends on the if the team has a big potential, we will do maximum to help them to accelerate and grow. So because at the end of the day, Telefonica is taking, as I said, we take 10% equity. We give 40,000 euros. But I would say that the best and the most added value of Wyara is the value of acceleration program. And we had teams coming to us who raised a prior Wyara
and your acceleration program is 8 months, right?
8 months.
Versus 3 months. 3 months. Okay. I've got to ask, what's your business model? So as an entrepreneur, when we build our business model, we understand it, right? We have KPIs. What are your measures of success? Why are you doing this? What's your business?
We want you that are joining the program to have a great, amazing, successful companies, and our 8% becomes 2 or 3 million.
Cool.
It's quite simple. It's probably is the business model much more simple that I never heard.
The same for Wyara ROI. One of the ROI is the amount of raised money by our startups, which means it increases the value of Wyara stakes at that particular company.
Which is really aligned. I mean, if you at the end you are going to get money, we are going to get money. If you fail, we fail.
Same as Startup Bootcamp, we are structured as a venture capital fund. So if the startups are successful in profit-wise, then we are successful as well.
So let's go to questions from the audience now. The first one I can see is, how easy is it for a Bulgarian team to apply to Wyara and Startup Bootcamp?
Apply is very easy.
Apply is very easy.
The problem is to be selected, probably. But I mean, it's in any startup bootcamp program, they have teams from around the world. I mean, in Amsterdam, they have people from Argentina, from Israel. In London now, they have 2 companies coming from the US. I think that one of them already raised $2 million US. So it's.
And where do I apply for both programs? Do I just go onto your websites or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I managed to persuade my Spanish colleague to generate a special code just for this event. So the code should be there, or I can send it to you via mail. So it's very easy. You apply, you have to fill in all the data, and then you go through the selection process, which is tough. As I said, I have currently 1 Bulgarian team in the portfolio, and they made it out of 140 teams to be one of 9 selected.
Okay. So what about this one? Can we locate our production in Bulgaria, our dev team, or do we need to all be at the Accelerator?
Definitely. I mean, what we need is that the founders, the 2 or 3 founders at least, they have to be in the place of the program for the 3 months. But if you want to keep, I remember this Argentina team that was mentioned before, I think that they had 2, 3, 4 people in Amsterdam running the program, the CEO, the CTO, and so on. And the 15 people engineering team was in Argentina. But you need the leaders, the founders has to be in the program, because if not, it doesn't make
all
sense.
the founders need to be in the program. Is that for 8 months as well for Wyara?
Yes.
Wow, so I've got to relocate to London, to wherever, for 8 months with at least the founding team.
But I would like to add that taking into account that we are trying to attract more senior teams, of course, we do not request you to be there like 24/7. So we said that the working week is from Monday till Thursday, let's say 4 o'clock. So because we have many teams from Poland, from Slovak Republic, so people are commuting and they are staying there like most of the week. But as the same, like my colleague, we ask founders to be there, because what's the value of acceleration program if the people are not there?
And for 11, if I have my dev team, say, in Estonia?
It works in some of the cases, although we encourage that, for example, the founders, they usually, one of the founders is an engineer. So this guy is also in the program, because it's very important that there is a connection between the business and the dev part of the team.
This is an interesting question. 3 months versus 8 months, right? There's 2 fundamental different approaches there. And we've got someone in the audience saying, okay, we've got 3 months. Isn't that too short to accelerate a business? Like, I'm going to come onto a program, I'm going to be there for 3 months, and you're going to accelerate me to raise money, because that's what it sounds like you guys care about. It's like, oh, at the end of these 3 months, I have to raise money. But 8 months, maybe that's too long. I've got to live somewhere for 8 months and relocate my team. What's the thought process behind that?
If I may start, because we have 8 months. Guys, 8 months is the maximum, but we have our business milestones set up and agreed with the startup at the very beginning. So they get 20,000 upon signing the term sheet, and then when they hit the milestones, they get the second tranche.
So it's not 40,000.
No.
It's not 40,000.
It is
20,000.
40,000, but you have to be good. You have to.
So it's 20, but if I hit the milestones, I get the second 20.
And the first,
Okay.
what I'm saying is, after 4 months, if the team is not performing, they have to leave.
Ouch.
So that's why it's for 8 months, because we want to give to those best teams the best resources and forces to help them. But 4 months is rather similar with 3 months. But honestly and truthfully, I have 9 teams now, and we didn't have to kick anyone out of the academy. So, but what I'm saying is, it's not 8 months program, it's sort of moduled program, and after 4 months they need to report the milestones fulfillment.
Well, she already said that it's almost 3 months, so, but the answer is, it works. It works, I mean, 3 months, it works. As I said before, it's 74% of the startups were raising money, already at of $500,000. The 3 months is very intensive period of time. I mean, it's probably the guys are not going to have, especially the first month, they are not going to have too much time in order to really focus in the business. They are going to improve their skills, the contacts, the relationship with investors, and those kind of things. So it works. I mean, it's, so far it works, and I don't see any reason to change it.
Cool. So 11, I love this question directly to you. Becoming a direct stakeholder in the company, and how difficult is it to manage your portfolio? Because you don't just have, you've been operating for how many years now?
2 years.
2 years. And how many companies are in your portfolio?
90.
90?
Yeah.
So how do you manage the 90? And what's your approach to that? And what happens with the companies that fail?
Okay, so we use typical approach like other larger accelerators, even like yours. I mean, portfolio approach, like each of the partners has companies to take care of and to oversee. The focus is usually on the companies that are in the program, and then the focus is on the companies that are performing best. This is usually the approach that you have, and and the companies that are most active in terms of what they need from you, and etc. The second important thing in managing a portfolio is to empower the network, so that actually there are more founders and more mentors and investors that could actually help the companies that are in the portfolio. So it's not only the team of 11 that is actually taking care of the company. So this is the big trick, and this is what the leading early stage investors are doing. And in terms of the failing companies, they just fail, like everybody else. And the good thing, at least so far, with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions, is that all the founders that, for whatever reason, they didn't work out for them, they remain very engaged in the community. They try to help other founders. We have even some founders that are entrepreneurs in residence, so they stay there, and even some of them are coming with new ideas.
Wow. So you have a community within your portfolio amongst the startups.
Yes.
And there is potential, say, if some of them fail, they could potentially get a job in one of the other companies.
It's already happening. I mean, like just 2 days ago, I understood that some of the team members of another company that is not doing well are going to join another company.
But let me ask you this question. So you guys all do in a portfolio approach, right? And we understand this with venture capital. Why? Because most of the companies fail. So you've built that into your business model. You've built in, a big proportion of your companies, your portfolio failing. And what was interesting, Daniel, you said you focus on the ones that are succeeding, but surely the ones that are struggling need your help the most.
That's why we, first 4 months, as I said, acceleration program at Wyara lasts up to 8 months. First 4 months, we try to identify the best stars. And after 4 months, we try to concentrate the top resources, connections, Telefonica trials to the best ones. So we give them all the same chance to succeed. And after 4 months, it's the best who get the most support, because obviously we are betting on these to generate money for Telefonica.
Okay.
We like and all our founders. And we have very good friends with them, but from a portfolio, because our strategy is incremental investment approach, which means that we start with small bets, a large number of small bets. Then through these 3 months, it's a due diligence for us in a way. So we see how companies are performing, and we double bet on the ones that are performing best.
So you can follow through with funding.
Yes. So from a portfolio approach, about 20% of all the companies that we invest will actually make the economic returns for us.
Interesting.
And this is what happens with YC, this is what happens with Techstars,
Yeah.
this is what happens with 500. And we have a smaller portfolio than them, but we already see the trends. Like 1/3 is doing really well, 1/3 is in the middle, so it's not sure which way they will go through. Like the other day, I had a very interesting situation. A company that we thought that it's probably going to wind up. They came with an investor and they said, "We have now an investor, and we would like to continue forward."
So, let me ask this question. So, you guys, there's the partners at 11, right, who are venture capital investors, and you use your accelerator program to deploy or start your portfolio for investment, and you own that equity yourselves in the startups. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a typical VC structure.
Sure, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But Startup Bootcamp, you've got corporates like subsidizing a ton of your programs. So who actually owns the equity in the startups?
In the startups, it's
Yeah.
always the program. We don't have any.
So the corporates don't own the equity.
not totally in the startups.
Okay.
So
So
it's
you
in this-
guys own, and therefore you care, right?
Sorry.
You guys own the equity.
Yeah. So we believe being independent is extremely important for this kind of things. In order to have the freedom to choose the best investor, the best partner, the best customer, without any kind of limitation. I mean, we want to be very clear on that. So
does the program director of each program, do they own the equity in the startups? Because what I'm trying to get here is, you were talking about a personal relationship. It's all about the team. All three of you said that. It's all about the team. And it's about building that relationship with investor and startup. And having raised money myself, I think that's really important, right, as an entrepreneur. So when I'm looking at my program directors within Startup Bootcamp, do they really care about me in the sense that if they don't own equity personally, why would they? And with Telefonica owns equity in my startup. Does Telefonica, a huge organization, really care about little old me?
let me answer. In my program in Barcelona, I'm the majority shareholder.
Wow.
I also have private investors, people that is joining the program, and probably, but I'm going to retain a stake in my program, meaning that I'm going to be owner in the startups, meaning that nobody but me are going to be much more interested and much more aligned in order to have a successful startup. So I'm going to do anything I can in order to get my money back. So
Is that the same across the Startup Bootcamp network?
yeah, more or less. I mean, every program is raising money from private investors and maybe some venture capital funds that are investing in the program, but at the end, the program is who invests directly, and most of the, let's say, managing directors are retaining a equity stake in the program. It's just very aligned.
In our case, we even went a step further. From the very beginning, we kept unallocated part of the carry for the team. So actually, the whole team that works at 11 has a stake in the fund. So actually, they do care about the success of the startups because they do have a direct interest in that.
I would say in our case, Telefonica is betting on Wyara to bring some fresh business ideas. So we do care because it's the future. For example, many startups already developed solutions which have been implemented into core business. For example, in UK there was a startup called 6free. They developed a video messaging product, and Telefonica is already offering it to B2C customers.
But you're an employee of Telefonica, is that correct?
Yeah, but my KPIs are connected or directly linked with the performance of the startups. So
Okay.
if of course, I'm an employee of Telefonica, but Telefonica owns Wyara 100%. The same like my colleagues, we have global partners who are global partners. For example, in Prague, I'm working very closely with IBM. But what I'm saying is the performance of the staff is dependent on the performance of the startup. So if they are successful, I get extra evaluation. So it's
So you personally do well?
yeah.
Oh wow, okay.
So what I'm saying is part of the KPI, part of the remuneration package for the directors of Wyara and stuff is directly connected with how much money my startups are raising. So basically, it's
So
my
Wyara
own
see-
money.
Yeah. Well, to a degree. Top question from the audience. Do accelerators' business models push for a quicker exit than what would be best in the long term?
Well, at the end, it's something that is not about us. I mean, at the end, there are shareholders' agreement that regulates how those kind of things work. I mean, we are not going to have a drag along. That is a typical venture capital clause. That means that we can sell the company if we want. We are not going to. I mean, in other words, we don't have the rights of in order to have a quick sale of the company. I mean, it's something at the end, probably at this stage, retained in the hands of the founders. I don't see this. We don't have nothing in our hands in order to push for a quick exit.
Not necessarily. Actually, the exits come after the fourth, fifth year, which is normal for the industry. So what is the push? The push is for faster growth, faster development, so that you actually move your agenda faster than if you're alone. That's it.
But
The
you're
same
all,
goes.
you're all investment vehicles, right? So you only make money if someone buys your shares for more money than you invested. Yeah?
Yeah, but
So you need to exit. So if a founder came to you and said, I am not going to exit, I'm going to keep building this business for the rest of my life,
probably I'm going to invite you to do not join the program.
that's really important stuff to know.
It happens. It happened to me in the past, and a team that we invest in, they decided at some point of time that this is a great lifestyle business, which is, okay, this is their decision. So you always have an exit solution there, because if you have a good relationship with them, you could always agree, like it happened in my case, and you have a liquidity event.
I would say in our case, it's the specific about Wyara is that we are trying to make sure that Wyara startups are enriching the business model of Telefonica. So it's not our major sort of effort, and we do not push the startups to exit, because we want to make sure that whatever is the added value for the business of Telefonica, we are utilizing it and harvesting.
Cool. So looking again at the top questions from the board, when you're relocating the team to your programs, is there additional grants that cover the expenses of accommodation, meals, and flights? Or is that coming out of my 15,000, 20,000, maybe another 20, and the investment money?
I mean, in our case, it's everything comes from the investment.
Yeah.
I mean, we do support the teams in all the logistics, etc. But we consider that at least so far nobody was short of cash.
Cool.
In our case, and in Barcelona, I mean, it's a combination. Of course, there is the 15,000 euros. We also have agreements with some, let's say, apartments in order for relocation to have a cheaper expenditure. And we are since we have some kind of support from the government in Spain, we are getting some kind of shove grants for most of the teams, around 50,000 euros as a grant, that helps in addition to the 15,000 euros.
No.
Well, there we go. Right, as we're coming up with the end of time, I'm going to ask a couple more questions. So, what is the hardest, craziest thing you've done to help one of your startups? I mean, potentially, that your program hasn't begun yet, so maybe you can't answer that one. But for the others, what is the hardest, craziest thing you've done to help one of your startups?
I would say, for me, coming from the corporate world, I was naive enough to think that when I call my colleagues from the corporate world and I say to them, hi, and I'm talking about CFO of the bank, and I was persuaded that one of my startups has a great added value for him and his bank, because we used to work together. And I felt like, I was coming to him with a lot of enthusiasm, and somehow I feel there are still barriers on the corporate side, and it took me ages to persuade my friend to even meet with the startup. So what I'm saying is the hardest thing for me is to balance the sort of corporate resources, doesn't matter if it's Telefonica or whichever corporation, and make sure that you find synergies and relevancy for the startups, because startups are eager, and there was a question how difficult or easy it is to get to the trial with Telefonica. It is difficult because you need to have a model which is relevant to the manager of Telefonica, and it's the same for any big corporation. So for example, last week one of my startups met with one of the key banks in the region, and they are going to the trial for customer experience project, but it took me 3 weeks, you know. It was just, and I was talking to a friend. So the hardest thing for me, and as I said at the very beginning, I take this mission of mine as an attempt to build bridges between corporate and startup world.
I just love it. I love it. So on one side of the table, you're saying, come to Wyara because we have Telefonica and we can help you at Telefonica. And then I say, what's the hardest thing you can do? It's like getting the startups to work with Telefonica. It's like, at least that's the truth, right?
I didn't say that it's impossible, guys. I said that you have to be relevant. You just don't think, you shouldn't think that just because you are at Telefonica's Accelerator, you automatically have all the doors open. You need to have a relevant project which can improve the portfolio of Telefonica, and that's it. If you are not relevant, I mean, if I'm not relevant
it's business. If you're not relevant, you're not relevant.
That's it. It's business.
Yeah. The program does not start yet, but as a business angel, I have been business angels. As an investor running my venture capital fund, I did so many, probably not crazy, but hardest thing. I mean, having dinners with people that you don't want to have dinner, but it's good for the potential investment. And
that's same for us entrepreneurs with investors.
Spending a Saturday night, all the night helping to prepare a presentation to a potential meeting with an investor on Monday. Something that you did as an entrepreneur that now you have to do again as an investor, because at the end you have the expertise and the know-how. Probably to do crazy things is not the best thing, but doing hard things is part of the day-to-day activities.
Like, from entrepreneur to investor, one of the reasons why you became investor was to have an easier life, and then you had to be, as an angel investor, start doing some of the entrepreneurial things.
Not sure if you're an investor, probably it's very easy to claim against investors. Sure. You are just having money and investing money, but I mean, well, put your money on the table. I mean, it's...
Yeah, it's not, and it's your money, that's the difference, right?
I mean, one of the hardest things that I see is that because we spent a lot of time with the founders, and we spent at least 3 months together. So at some point of time, you build really strong relationship. And sometimes it's very difficult and hard to balance this rapport that you have with the founders, because you become a peer to them. And on the other hand, to behave as an investor, because sometimes you have to say, okay, guys, this is not going to work. So we are not going to invest any longer. And we failed in certain situations to convey this message in the beginning. And it's probably one of the hardest things to manage these two kind of roles, of being very close to the founders, being a friend, and on the other hand, to be brutally business honest in a certain respect.
Okay. So, I don't know, how much time do we have? One more question. Well, I kind of want to ask one last question, and I'd really appreciate some honesty. If you are an entrepreneur, personally, and you were having your startup, and you were looking to build your business, what accelerator program would you choose, and why?
Myself, I would go for 11 for sure.
And why?
Because I like our team a lot.
It's about the.
And also, no, I like really a lot the founders that we have.
Yeah.
Because I really like the time to spend with the founders, and if you come at 11, you see how many of the founders that are alumni now, how they spend some of their time during the week actually there. They're meeting and talking about what they did, what are the challenges. I mean, it's a fantastic environment.
It's a family.
It's a family.
Okay.
I already said before. I mean, take a look what you're looking for, try to identify a well-experienced accelerator. It does not necessarily has to be a startup bootcamp. Could be, it's plenty
So
of.
who would you choose? You're an entrepreneur, right? You've built businesses before.
I already did. I choose a startup bootcamp.
But they didn't exist when you were building your business.
No, I mean, I already did as a managing director. When I was considering to open an accelerator program in Barcelona, I was exploring different accelerators, not only startup bootcamp.
And is that because of the vertical? Like why? So
It's
why?
a combination of a lot of things. When I was considering to open an accelerator in Barcelona, I have meetings with different founders of different accelerators. I was visiting different programs of different accelerators. I was doing my due diligence, right? And at the end, as a managing director, let's say, not as an entrepreneur, I choose Startup Bootcamp. It's because I think that we can to have a vertical is something that add a lot of value to the startups. Having 10 startups in the same field, in the same vertical, means that the support, the workshops, the investors are going to be really focused on that. I have venture capitals from LA, Los Angeles saying, I would like to be involved in your program because we are raising a venture capital fund for IoT. And I want to be close to you.
For you, location is important. So you wanted to be in Barcelona, and it's like, that's where you're based. I want to do that. The other one is you're passionate about IoT in that vertical, in that industry. So let's specialize. And hence, when you look at that through that lens, if you want to be in Europe, you want to be doing IoT, and you want to specialize in that, what are the options? Okay, it's Startup Bootcamp. So Jarmila, for you, what would you choose if you were doing a startup?
You know, first of all, I would like to, I would ask myself, do I really need an accelerator? What is my expectation? I mean, do I go there because of money? And if I go there because of money, I would say then I have a wrong project, because you should never go to accelerator just because of money. You should go because of the acceleration program, no matter how many modules, no matter how special it is.
So what elements of the program? So mentorship or?
I'm talking about all different, like mentorship, one-on-one with selected experts. I'm talking about the exposure to investors. I'm talking about events where you can, networking events when you can be introduced to relevant people from the industry. And I'm not talking about Telefonica at all now, yeah. But what I'm saying is accelerators, what I've seen during last 10 months, I see a great progress of professionalism within key and top accelerators across Europe. We are learning by doing, because this is a great fashionable thing just now for big corporations to have accelerators. But first of all, my closing sentence will be, when I asked my one of the Polish guys who came to Wyara and who was accepted, the founder, I said, what are you doing here? What do you want? And he says, I just raised 300,000 euros. I don't need your money. I'm coming because of the Telefonica network, and I'm coming because of, I heard that you throw great parties and your acceleration program is good. So what I'm saying is never go to accelerator for money. So if I'm seducting you with 40,000 euros, forget about it, because it's not about money.
Okay, so if the accelerator program is not about money, right? You talked about mentorship. And you've all mentioned that mentorship is a big part of your own programs. Yet, arguably one of the best accelerators in the world, Y Combinator, doesn't do mentors. Right? They don't do mentor-driven approach in the same way Techstars does with their mentor-driven accelerator program. So the way they design their program is fundamentally different to, from what I understand, you three operate. So mentors, network, who has the biggest network? Whether it's a corporate, whether it's in a specific field, whether it's locally, to grow and expand across a region. And then you talk about connections to investors. These are some of the three things. It's not about the money. These are some of the three things you've all mentioned, all three of you, that's really important. Maybe the personal touch. So when you look at that, which accelerator programs have the largest in all three? Is it Techstars? Is it 500 startups? Unfortunately, Marvin couldn't be here today, but he was here yesterday. Is it AngelPad? Is it Y Combinator? Is it Startup Bootcamp? Is it Wyara? Just some things to think about, right, for the entrepreneurs in the room. Anyway, thank you very much for the panel, for taking the time, and for answering the questions. I really appreciate it. I hope that's been valuable to you, the entrepreneurs in the room. Thank you very much. Big round of applause, please.
Thank you. Thank you. to our great moderator as well. Lovely job, lovely panel, guys. Thank you. We're a little behind schedule, so we're going to make up some of that time by reducing the coffee break. But nevertheless, 15, 20 minutes for coffee break. Back here for the next stage, seed investments. And just a heads up, after the lunch break, about 2 p.m. maybe, we're going to have a separate track. So we're going to continue in the main room doing the stuff that we've been talking about, but there's going to be a separate startup track called Start Track just outside. And the guys from 11 are going to be helping us meet you some of those great startups around, share their stories. So be back here in 20 minutes. Thank you.